fellow human beings, Power Gamer here, and if a franchise can have a vast amount of entries yet most people say it peaked with the second one, is that always a bad thing?
Megaman 2, one of the most popular video game sequels of all time. This game is still regarded by many as the best of the classic Mega Man games, despite the fact that there's 11 total, and it's not a series people say went downhill like Sonic. People just really love this game. So what makes it such a beloved entry? Well, let's go back a bit. After the first Mega Man game flopped, Capcom was not willing to make a sequel, but series co-creator Akira Kitamura was determined to make one. So after some reasoning, Capcom agreed on the condition that the developers made it while working on other projects as well. Yes, the developers made this game in their spare time while working on other games. Now that's what I call a passion project. The team wanted to improve on the original game in almost every way, and give it a more anime-esque design, even more than the original. The game was finally released for the Famicom on December 24th, 1988 in Japan, with North America getting it on the NES on June 2nd, 1989, and Europe not getting it until December 14th, 1990. And because I'm sure you're wondering, the North American box art was an improvement from the first one, but it still wasn't that good. It's also better than the European one, where he has a bowling pin for an arm. Either way, making this game was the right decision because it sold tremendously better than the first one. It is the best-selling Mega Man game of all time to this day, and it was critically acclaimed. Many people still regard it as one of, if not the best Mega Man game ever made.
Now, do I agree with that? Well, I would say this is my favorite classic Mega Man game that I played, but I've only played the first 4, so I can't really say if it's the best in the series. Either way, I remember enjoying this game much more than the first one, so let's head back into the Legacy Collection and see why this game is held in such a high regard.
We get a bit more story to this game, and an actual introduction. After being defeated by Mega Man, Dr. Wily has returned and created his own set of robot masters to help him take over the world. I wonder why he was able to do that. So Dr. Light once again sends Mega Man to stop him. After that's given, we get this really cool shot of Mega Man standing on top of a skyscraper. Now that's what I'm talking about. While the sprites for this game are pretty similar to the first one, the backgrounds look much better. They have a lot more detail and personality to them, which really helps with the aesthetic of the levels. And thankfully, the slowdown isn't as bad as the first game. It still happens occasionally, but nowhere near as often. Instead, the main issue with the graphics this time is sprite flickering. It happens pretty frequently, and it's not the end of the world, but it can be pretty distracting. The soundtrack, on the other hand, oh my god, this soundtrack is awesome. This game has one of the most beloved video game soundtracks of all time, and for good reason. Every single one of these songs is catchy as hell and gets you so pumped up, with some of my favorites being Metal Man Stage, Bubble Man Stage, Wood Man Stage, and need I mention Wily Fortress 1? Now the gameplay is ultimately the same as last time. You can play the stages in any order you want. You run, jump, and shoot your way through the level to reach the Robot Master at the end. Once you kill it, you get their weapon, and you can use it to fight the other Robot Masters who are weak to some of them.
This game is less about reinventing the formula of the first game, and more about tweaking it to make it better.
One big difference is the controls. Mega Man isn't as slippery as he was last time, and while the jumping feels the same, you don't fall faster than a 10-ton weight in a swimming pool. You can still only aim in 2 directions, but there aren't as many annoying enemy placements as before. Overall, I'd say this game is easier than the first one. While the last game was filled with instant death traps and straight-up unavoidable enemies, this one is much more skill-based. It's still hard, don't get me wrong, but there aren't as many cheap or aggravating level designs as before, for the most part. There's also a difficulty selection at the start screen, which apparently wasn't in the original Japanese version. It affects how much damage your Mega Buster does and how much health gets dropped from enemies. And you can actually save your progress in this game with a password, which is made obsolete with the Legacy Collection, but whatever. The levels feature some branching paths that can either help you avoid enemies or find some goodies. You've got the returning health and ammo restoration and extra lives, but new to this game are the energy tanks, or E-tanks. When you grab one of these things, you can save it in your inventory and use it to restore your health. You can only carry 4 at a time, and you lose any you have if you get a game over, but they're still a great tool for helping you stay alive, and a great reward for being able to grab them, since most of them are either hidden or hard to reach. The other big difference is that instead of 6 Robot Masters this time, there's 8. Bubble Man, Air Man, Quick Man, Wood Man, Crash Man, Flash Man, Metal Man, and Heat Man. You get a more flashy intro sequence when you select them, and if you hold the A and B buttons, the stars in the background turn into birds.
It doesn't really affect anything, but it's kinda neat.
Another big improvement of this game is the enemy designs. Most of the enemies in the first game were just generic robots, but here almost every enemy matches the theme of of the level. You'll fight rabbits in a forest, fish in the water, gear things in a factory, etc. It really helps the levels feel more unique since you're not just fighting the same things over and over again. Now on to the actual stages. Unsurprisingly, I started with Metal Man. It has these conveyor belts, dropping spikes, and little drill things that come from above and below. Metal Man himself is pretty easy. He just throws blades at you while you're on a conveyor belt, and he's weak to Quick Man's weapon. Next, Bubble Man. His stage puts you in water, which lets you jump higher, and I hope you like spikes because they're everywhere in this level, and the Slayer's Touch kills you instantly. They're not too hard to avoid, but still. You also have to kill a bunch of frogs and a couple of giant anglerfish. Bubble Man just swims around while shooting bubbles at you, and he's weak to Metal Man's weapon.
Yeah, he's also really easy.
Heat Man stage has a bunch of instant kill lava, and it brings back everyone's favorite hazard from the first game, disappearing blocks. He dashes and spits fire at you, and is weak to Bubble Man's weapon. Wood Man's level opens with these bat things, and it ends with you jumping across sticks of bamboo with these birds dropping eggs that split into a bunch of tiny enemies. They're kind of annoying, but they drop a lot of health and weapon energy. The boss fight, you have to avoid giant leaves falling down while also jumping over this wheel of leaves he throws at you. He's weak to Heat Man's weapon. Next up, Airman. The stage is mostly in the sky, and you have to kill these Zeus bots to steal their cloud platforms. And some platforms just come out of nowhere. That's fun. Airman shoots a bunch of tornadoes at you while blowing you back, and he's weak to Woodman's weapon. Crashman's stage mainly has you ride on platforms while these things come at you. This is where Leafman's weapon really comes in handy. He jumps around throwing bombs at you, and God, he moves fast. He's weak to Airman's weapon. On to Flashman. His level has some branching paths you can take, and not much else really. This is one of the more boring levels. He can stop time to immobilize you and then shoot you with pellets. He's weak to Crashman's weapon. Only one left, Quick Man. This is easily the worst level in the game. It's filled with a bunch of fast-moving lasers that shoot out from the walls, and they kill you instantly if you touch them. It's insanely hard to predict, and you have to avoid them perfectly. Thank God I'm on the Legacy Collection. Quick Man jumps around shooting boomerangs at you, and he's weak to Flashman's weapon, though you probably won't be able to use it that much since it's nearly essential for the level itself, and your ammo will likely be drained by this point. The weapons are drastically improved from that of the first game. The metal blades are hands down the best of them all. They're big, strong, have tons of ammo, and can be aimed in all 8 directions.
Why can Mega Man shoot buzzsaws in 8 separate directions, but not his standard arm blaster? Who knows? Who cares?
For many people, this weapon essentially replaces the Mega Buster, and I firmly believe this is one of the biggest reasons why Mega Man 2 is still regarded as the best Mega Man game. The Bubble Lead isn't that great, but it can be useful for taking out enemies below you. The Atomic Fire just feels like a weaker version of the Mega Buster, which makes it the worst weapon in the game. The Leaf Shield surrounds you and knocks out any smaller enemy, making it great for defense, and as soon as you move, it goes flying in whatever direction you're going. The Air Tornadoes are strong and good for above enemies, but honestly I didn't use them that much. The Crash Bomber is really powerful and can destroy certain walls. The Time Stopper completely freezes everything, making the platforming much easier, but it wears off when it runs out of ammo, and you can't turn it off by yourself. It only stops when you run out of energy, so unless you refill it, you can only use it once. And finally, the Quick Boomerang, which is just a better version of the Rolling Cutter from the last game. It's strong, fast, and has tons of ammo, so you can spam it a lot. With the exception of the Atomic Fire, the weapons are not only really fun, but lots of them serve an additional purpose, giving you more reasons to use them. I got a lot more use out of these weapons than most of the ones from the first game. And when you defeat a Robot Master, you get this little screen showcasing you getting their weapon, which is pretty cool. But those aren't the only upgrades you get. When you beat enough stages, you get 3 items you can use. Kinda like that beam thing from the first game. Item 1, Item 2, and Item 3. Did the guy who was supposed to name these things get hit by a bus? Whatever. The names may stink, but they're pretty useful items. Item 1 lets you make 3 floating platforms to travel upwards. Item 2 lets you make a rocket you can ride to pass over things. And Item 3 makes this bouncy thing that lets you travel up walls. Sadly, you can't switch weapons until the platforms disappear, but these are still pretty useful. Welp, on to the Wily stages. Wily bows his eyebrows again. And we see he has his own castle now. Once again, you have to use all the weapons you've gathered up to this point. First stage is just climbing up ladders, and then you jump across blocks over a bottomless pit. Sudden Dragon! He's weak to the Quick Boomerang, and you better be careful because a single hit can lead to instant death. Also, there's this bright flash every time you hit him.
This was a bad day to get epilepsy.
Stage 2, Spikes. Lots of spikes. And the boss is a bunch of blocks that come up to form these things. They're weak to the metal blades. Stage 3 is okay! I take back what I said about Stage 2. This is a lot of spikes. It's Bubble Man stage on steroids. The boss is this derpy looking thing, and he's also weak to the Quick Boomerang. Stage 4, more climbing ladders and fake platforms. Really? You also ride on platforms while enemies come at you over spike pits. Thank God for the Leaf Shield. We then reach the worst boss in the game. You have to shoot these things while they fire at you, and they're protected by walls. They're weak to the Crash Bomber and can only be damaged by the Crash Bomber. You absolutely need to have full ammo when you get here, because you have to use every single shot in the right way if you want to kill them. So if you used any of the ammo before this room, or shoot the wrong wall, or miss a shot, or just die, you're screwed. And you have to either farm for ammo or get a game over to restore your weapon energy. Screw this boss! Stage 5 is a room where you have a rematch with all 8 Robot Masters. Instead of being spread out like last time, this one is a gauntlet. But you have all the right weapons, so you should be fine. Wait, Metal Man gets one shot by his own weapon? These things really are busted. After that, you take on Wily in a ship that shoots orbs at you. Again, Metal Blades for the first one, Quick Boomerang for the second one.
Why are so many bosses weak to those?
But that's not the end. Wily escapes, and after a creepy run through this hallway with no music, you find him in this dark room, and he turns into an alien. What the hell? It doesn't matter. Eat bubbles, you alien scum. After you kill him, it's revealed that this is an illusion. Wily begs for forgiveness again, and Megaman presumably just leaves him again, because that worked so well the last time. We get this somber walk through the seasons, and the game comes to an end.
Megaman 2 is a great sequel. It improves upon the first game in just about every way. It has some nasty moments, but those do not ruin it at all. If you're looking to get into the Mega Man series, this is a great place to start. And to answer that question about peaking with the second entry, yes, that is always a bad thing. I mean, just look at my cousin Phil. He was the third entry in his family, and now he works at a gas station.